Welcome to What the Mom podcast. You are listening to Doulas Petra
and Jacqueline.
Motherhood can be isolating and hard.
We are two doulas who want to provide a safe place to talk about all things mom,
From pregnancy
to birth,
to postpartum.
to parenting.
Join us as we have real conversations about real life.
Welcome to What the Mom podcast.
You are listening to Doulas Petra
And Jacqueline. Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Woohoo!
Thanks for joining us today.
We're together again, so cheers to that. Doesn't always
Yeah.
happen. Yay! And we put all of our 7 children to sleep, so
Yes.
it's a win. We get to have some time together, and we're super excited to be sharing with you tonight about 8 ways to have a positive birth.
Yes.
So, Petra, what would you say is something that you thought about when you thought about having a positive birth, especially for your first? I don't know, I was scared, literally, poopless. Like, I was so scared. And, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I didn't have as much knowledge that time
Yeah.
as I do now. And so, yeah, like, what was something that you thought about?
Well, when I found out I was pregnant with my first,
Yeah.
I did a lot of research.
See, I didn't.
That's the kind of person I am. And I listened to
could
as
see
many
that.
podcasts as I could.
Yeah.
I watched as many
Never.
videos as I could. I read as many books as I could. I took out like 4 or 5 books from the library at a time.
Wow. So
I was that crazy person.
Yeah. And I was the total opposite. I was like, let's just pretend that everything's just going to be okay. And I totally could have equipped myself way more. And I wish I had, but
I think most people with their first baby don't feel fully prepared.
no.
I mean, you don't ever really feel fully prepared, but
Yeah.
less so with your first.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
I don't know. Even in my second birth, like, I feel like it could have totally been better.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, birth is something that's very unexpected. So I think that's why
Yeah.
we can always feel like, oh, I wish I knew that. And I wish I knew that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just interesting because, yeah, I feel like my third, I felt way more prepared.
Yeah.
But then it ended up being so different than I ever could have imagined, which was hard too, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, so I would say that it would be an asset to moms to be prepared and to do that kind of stuff. So the first thing that we were wanting to talk about is establishing what kind of support network you'll have during your labor.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's important to know who you want to have around you.
Yeah.
Whoever you have, whether that's, I mean, usually it's your partner or spouse. Yeah. It might be your mother or your mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a sister, a good friend,
a
doula.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different people you could have there.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to make sure that they have a positive view of birth as well.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And something that's similar to you, or at least they're willing to acknowledge that it's your birth, not theirs, and they won't let any fears get in the way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I would say that's what I think is the most important thing.
Absolutely, because you are going to be either chill and not super stressed out, or you're going to be super high strung about everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I decided to have a home birth with my first. I didn't really know much about it. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I didn't want to go to the hospital because I had too many friends that went before me and had bad experiences.
Yeah.
And like, I just knew that I was going to be the chillest at home in my area, in my space.
Yeah.
And so when my husband's like, so what? They're like, midwives? What? They deliver babies at home? Like, he literally asked, he's like, we're not cave people. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but this is how I feel, and I'll be way more high strung at a hospital. And so he was like, okay, like I trust you. I believe you. And then
Yeah.
when he met our midwife, he felt so different. But that's all about being prepared.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
true.
I would say that would
I
be my thing.
I also know I've heard lots of people who stress about this, knowing
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be at the birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, saying things like, oh, my mother really wants to be at the birth.
Yeah.
And I want her to be there, but then
Yeah.
my mother-in-law is going to be angry if I say no. And I always say, you shouldn't be worried about other people's feelings. It is your birth.
Yeah. Fair
This
enough.
is your experience, and you need whoever you feel the most comfortable with.
That's true.
So that's, I don't know about you, but that's what I always tell people.
Absolutely.
I don't think we should be catering to other people, feeling like, oh, well, they want to be here. Well, you're the one who's literally going through labor and birth.
Absolutely. I kind of experienced that. It wasn't that my mother-in-law wanted to be there or anything, that had nothing to do with it. But with my second, my mom was going to be there. That's what we had decided. And then when I said my mom was going to be there, he was like, well, what about my mom? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I don't think so. Nothing against her. Nothing at all. I personally just wouldn't feel comfortable having her there. I love my mother-in-law, but that's just, I just want my mommy, Like, and then
Yeah.
he kind of didn't understand it at first, and then he was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And also, like, she will admit, like, she wasn't for a home birth, and that's fine too, right? Like, there'd be things that would worry her, and it could cause me to worry and cause me to stall my labor or whatever. So I would say it honestly, it has to be that, yeah, absolutely, mom has to be on board with it. It's not just what dad wants, for sure, because we're the ones that are going through it and having to deal with it. So yeah, in the end, he totally got it. So no hard feelings.
And some people prefer to have quiet, calm kind of atmosphere. And if you're that type of person, then you're not going to want too many people in that support network. You're going to want a key couple people to support you, and that's it. And then other people, like me, don't really care. And there could be a party going on and I wouldn't care. I'd just go retreat and do my own thing.
That is true. She's a weirdo. Just
kidding. Little bit.
A little bit.
And if you're that type of person like me, then you can have a larger support network and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out what type of person you are and how you think you feel most comfortable in stressful situations.
Yeah.
Because everybody is different and one way is not right and the other is wrong. It just depends on the person.
We all are different in how we feel. So yes, absolutely. Knowing what you're going to do with your team there, that is so important. And no matter what, it's up to you.
Yeah.
No matter what you want, it's up to you. And everyone will follow suit because you're the boss.
It's true.
Yeah.
And also thinking about the support network postpartum.
Oh gosh. I don't think people think about this.
A lot of times we don't.
I didn't think about it, but I didn't really, I don't know, I had like friends that if I needed someone to come help me or whatever, they would. I never really thought of that because I just knew that people loved me.
If you had that means you had a network kind of there already, though.
Yeah, like as far as like family and stuff, I didn't really have anybody. So yeah, I don't have my mom or anyone.
But it is good to think about who you can call on if you need that help, because you never know what your experience will be like for healing postpartum.
Could be really easy and could be really rough.
Yeah. So it's important to think, who can I lean on? Who do I have to call? Yeah. And that could be certain family members. It could be certain friends.
Yeah.
It could mean we're going to budget to put some money aside to have a house cleaner or to have a postpartum doula or, whatever. So there's no shame in that kind of help as well.
No, absolutely not. Because you may need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the second way to have a positive birth experience is to, it kind of goes hand in hand with the support network, is building your care team. So who is going to be your healthcare provider?
Yeah.
Are you going to go with a doctor? Are you going to go with a midwife?
And yeah, exactly. Weighing those pros and cons and stuff.
We have kind of talked about this in other podcast episodes.
If you want to have a doula, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's important to think what type of birth you're looking for, and who will be able to best support that. And then, of course, if you have a high or low risk pregnancy, that determines whether you can even have a midwife or not.
Yeah,
or if you have to have a doctor. And then finding one or two, depending on where you live and how it works, that you're comfortable with, because you need to be comfortable with whoever's going to be there when you're birthing.
Absolutely.
So that's really important.
Absolutely. Like, and then you'll feel more confident going in to your birth, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not knowing. And that's one thing. No offense to people that have doctors, but one thing is that this happens so many times is they say, this is my doctor. You see them your entire pregnancy. And then sometimes they don't deliver. And it's not just sometimes, it's a ton of times they don't deliver. And so sometimes to people that can really be stressful. And to me, that would stress me out. That's why I chose to go with a midwife, because I knew that one of the two of the midwives that I saw would be delivering my baby. And it wouldn't just be a complete stranger. That's just me. So I'm pretty sure you felt the same too.
Yeah.
So
my biggest thing was learning how they approached birth, and knowing I had low risk pregnancy meant I didn't need someone who was specialized in these emergencies, because I was unlikely to have them. I wanted someone who would have the continuity of care from the very beginning to the 6 weeks postpartum, because that's what midwives do the whole time.
Yeah.
And I wanted someone who would practice better informed consent.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously you can tell we're both more leaning towards the midwife for low risk pregnancies, but
absolutely.
That doesn't mean that there aren't good doctors out there as well.
There is, and I just went to a birth a month ago, and the doctor was awesome. So
yeah,
actually both places I went, I had never met either of them, and they were really on their game, and they were really good. So absolutely. I'm just saying that a lot of my friends that have told me they've had hospital births and they've had doctors, sometimes more often than not, their doctor never delivered. And so it's just, you have to decide what you're okay with and go from there.
That is true.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then third is preparing for the unexpected.
It's a big one.
That happened to me. I had no idea. I thought, oh, this is my third baby. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be easy. It's going to be way better, you know, than I ever imagined. And I thought this is going to be great. And then I ended up having to transfer after I was in labor, in active labor from midnight till 7 a.m. and still nothing was happening. And my midwife was on it. And she's like, okay, we should transfer. And I didn't want to, but I knew that I had no choice. And not only was I transferring, but there was no midwife to care for me. And so I was going to be transferred to care to a doctor. And I did not feel good about that. And thank God I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And right before I was going to have my midwife leave, I felt the baby coming and crowning, and she looked, and it was indeed my baby. And she ended up delivering our baby, and I was so grateful. But that doesn't happen all the time. They could have been like, oh, you're not dilating, we need to put you on Pitocin. Oh, that's been too long, your water's been broken, we're going to put you for a C-section. You know, at the end of the day, I would have gone through whatever I had to have my baby healthy. But like, obviously I wasn't, wanting that, but things do change. And so having a birth plan is awesome, but just knowing that things can change.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you've wanted to have a baby at home and then it just didn't happen. You had to transfer and it wasn't what you wanted, right?
I had a lot of unexpected things
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. It just happened.
There's so many things that can happen in birth because no two births are ever the same.
Never.
Just like no two pregnancies are ever the same. And there's always a possibility of things coming up and happening that you did not envision. So having a positive birth experience does not necessarily mean having your dream birth. You can still have a positive birth experience even if unexpected things occur.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my first, I was going to have a birth in the birth center. Everything was planned out. I had been having this beautiful pregnancy until the very end. All of a sudden, my blood pressure skyrocketed.
It was the very end.
It was insane. And I had this high blood pressure. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now I'm no longer a low risk patient. I have to give birth in a hospital. I'm not eligible to give birth at the birth center. Mm-hmm. My plans had totally changed. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this now. I had been envisioning this certain birth this whole time. Mm-hmm. And so I had to somehow find a way to prepare for the unexpected. So then I'm told I need to go on bed rest, checking my blood pressure multiple times a day, having non-stress tests.
That's just almost like more to stress you out.
So then I was like, well, how can I still have a beautiful birth experience, a positive birth experience in a hospital, because I had not planned for this.
Yeah.
I still was able to. It was definitely not what I envisioned.
Yeah.
But it was still nice in the end.
Yeah.
And we brought the Bluetooth speaker with us and my hypnobirthing tracks. And I had some music, some like candlelight style music that I had in the background for some relaxing music sounds.
Yeah.
And I brought my own birth ball from home just in case they didn't have one available there. So I was like, I'm still going to do this. I'm going to be prepared. And it was still a nice birth, even though it wasn't what I envisioned. And my second, the unexpected happened right after I birthed the baby, and I hemorrhaged. Well, first of all, baby didn't breathe right away. Mm-hmm. They had to suction and give oxygen. Baby breathed, but then I hemorrhaged, so I had to transfer. So again, not what I expected. But I can still look at the birth and say, you know what, it was still
a good experience.
A positive birth experience for the most part. Mm-hmm. I still got to keep the baby with me. The baby was on me the entire time.
Yeah.
And that was my main thing, is I personally wanted to keep that baby close and I didn't want to be separated. Mm-hmm. I was still able to establish breastfeeding. That was important to me.
Yeah.
So kind of just knowing all the different things that can occur and how do you handle them if they occur?
Yeah.
And how can you have that mindset of, instead of thinking, oh, this is horrible and now I just have this bad birth experience, how do you change your mindset into thinking, this can still be beautiful? It might not be what I envisioned, but it can still be beautiful. It can still be positive.
It can still be positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like I didn't have a horrible experience. In the end, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
The care team I had was great. They were all on it. Like, they all were on their game. They all were really good, respectful, really awesome. So
yeah,
in the end, I was like, I didn't want to go, but
yeah,
it would have been worse if I had not gone because of the rules with COVID, and they would have sent her on an ambulance by herself, and that would have been 10 times worse. And so, yeah, it's about finding the good in everything.
Yeah. Or my sister having her 5th baby, preparing for this home birth.
Oh,
Turns out she has back-to-back contractions. She has her baby within
2 hours.
2 hours. It was intense, is how she describes it.
like almost like it would have been nice if it was like 5 hours, 6 hours, so, and just, little bit by little. But.
Yeah, so that would be another example of if you prepare for the unexpected, you prepare, things might change.
Yeah.
And so I don't think she looks at her birth and says, oh, that was not a
Awful.
positive experience.
No,
It just
it
was
just
not what
was,
she expected.
and it was just really intense all at once. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just, yeah, it's about looking at the good in it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
She got to see her baby really soon.
there you go. It's probably going to be you this time.
Yeah. And she got to stay there. She got to stay. It was a home birth.
Yeah.
So she got to stay home, didn't have to transfer, no hemorrhaging. The
Yeah.
baby breathes right away. Like, everything was still good.
Everything was great.
So it was still a positive experience, just
not
unexpected.
what we expected. Yeah. So just to know that things do sometimes go different, and yeah,
Exactly.
just know that whatever happens, it's supposed to happen. And as long as you and baby are healthy, that's what's most important.
It's true.
That's the only thing. Like my friend who had twins, and then yeah, she was like up and moving out of the hospital a day after she had them, and then had some things that were not great after, and yeah, not what she expected, but she's just enjoying her little babies. That's what's more important.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So the next one, prioritizing your recovery. I think a lot of moms don't. We just think, oh, we have to get to those dishes, or we have to do that, or we have to do that, or we got to do this. And it's like, maybe we just need to rest. I don't think we know what that means.
In North America, there's a lot of pressure to return to normal as soon as you can after you have a baby.
Yeah.
Whether that means your routines, whether that means how your body looks, whether that means how you interact with people. There is a lot of pressure for that.
And it's different. In different cultures, it's different. Like I was talking to my one friend who's from Africa, and her mom came and watched her kid. Like, if she wasn't nursing that baby, she did not have that baby with her. She was breasting.
Yeah.
And I'm all like, girlfriend, come on. This is not Africa. I don't have this luxury. And she's just like, listen, you have that placenta that detached, and it was an organ, and you don't see what's happening, but that's healing. And you need to take it easy, because you can hemorrhage after birth if you're not seriously careful. And so you have to prioritize your healing. I think we just don't as much, especially when we have multiple kids, because we know that they need us. And that was one thing with this last birth. My husband was like, he's like, you should just milk it as long as you need to. Like, I don't mind going to get you toast. I don't mind waiting on you. I don't mind doing this for you, you know? And I feel like, yeah, I was just like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And he was like, no, I want you to rest. And I wouldn't rest unless he was like, no, you're staying in bed. Like, just cuddle the baby and nurse her, you know? So yeah.
It's true.
We just have to care enough about ourselves, because if we're not well, then us as a unit is not going to be well either. And that's not good.
And there's a lot of complications that can arise postpartum if you aren't careful enough.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they always do, but they can. So
yeah, they can be super serious.
If you tore and you had stitches, they could break, and then you're gonna have other complications with the tears that you had. Some people have had situations happen where their postpartum bleeding calms down. They think, oh, I can get up and I can do this and I can do that, and all of a sudden it starts to get really heavy again. Well, that's your body telling you, whoa, slow down. You're not ready yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that can happen is you could get a prolapse, where your uterus or part of the vaginal wall is basically coming like out towards the outside of the vagina. And if you have a prolapse, that's something that's very dangerous for your health. And you need to try to fix it, because if it gets really serious, then you need surgery, and you don't want that. So if you catch it soon enough, then you can manage it that way. You can check with a physio therapist that specializes in pelvic floors.
Pelvic floors, yeah, absolutely.
But something like that can be avoided by just resting longer and not putting too much pressure
Absolutely.
on your body when it's not ready.
Yeah. We just need to rest. R-E-S-T. Just rest. It's okay.
Yeah.
The dishes will still be there. Your messes will still be there.
Yeah.
It just means take care of yourself.
Take this season to just relax.
Yeah, because we don't usually get that. So milk it, ladies. Milk it as long as you need to.
Yeah.
It's important. Next one is get educated. Wow, do I wish I would have got educated in a lot of areas of my everything, but yeah, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
For sure.
It helps make the experience a little bit easier than it would otherwise if you at least know. There's certain things you can't educate yourself enough about because you need to experience it, but you can try. Like breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding just came so natural to me, and I'm so thankful and blessed that that was my thing. Because I mean, I didn't really research it. I just was like, oh, they just latch and they eat. Okay. And it was super easy for me.
And that is not the norm.
And that's not the norm. And that's literally how it's been for every single baby I've had. So, but yeah, educating yourself on that, a whole bunch of things, you know, educating yourself on like, how do you, you know, do pain measures in labor if you're not going to do drugs? If you don't want an epidural, like, how do you calm your body? You know, there's so many different things you can do. And I wish I would have, you know, researched more, but shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and I survived. So
I say when you're looking into researching things for pregnancy and birth, like that's something that people who do any kind of research, that's what they would look into. But you also have to remember to look into postpartum. How do you heal? How long does it take? Just knowing that a lot of women still have the large belly after and still look pregnant, and that's okay. Normal. How long does it take for your uterus to shrink back down? You're still bleeding for a while after. Yeah. In fact, it's like a really heavy period at first, and there could be small clots in it. But at what point do you need to be worried and call your healthcare provider? Like some of these things, you don't want to like get stressed out about it and overwhelmed, but sometimes it's good to know and be aware of it. So I say it's kind of like when people get married. A lot of people, they spend all of this time researching and planning a wedding, but they're not thinking about the marriage.
No, they're not.
So it's the same thing like with the baby. Like you plan, okay, for pregnancy and birth, and then I have this baby. My body is trying to heal. Oh, this baby has this poop. It's called meconium, and it sticks to the butt. What? It's not like a normal poop. Oh, wait, this baby needs to eat like every hour. What? My baby doesn't want to sleep anywhere except in my arms. What? That's normal? Yeah, it is. There's a lot of things that could become like it could be a shock if you didn't hear about it, learn it, research it, right?
Yeah. It's true. There's so many things. And where they're a lifeline. Like they don't know how to do anything. They know how to like tell you they're not happy because they're pooping or they're hungry.
Yeah.
You know? Like that's it. Those are their cues. And so sometimes you get a colicky baby and all they do is just scream. And I can't imagine that. But I have friends who've had it and it's been brutal. So educate yourself on that too, you know, like I think that's really important. And
it's true.
The more educated you are, the more you'll feel equipped to go into, you know, pregnancy and labor and postpartum and feel like you can, you know, come out the other side and be okay.
It's true. I remember I was researching diapers and I told myself, well, I think I want to go cloth diapers. But then I started having dreams about cloth diapers. I was so stressed out because it was so overwhelming to me because I knew I wanted to do cloth diapers, but I'm like, there's so many different types of cloth diapers. Like, what kind do I do?
Oh
How
my
do I know this is
gosh.
going to fit my baby? How do I know, like, the washing routine is going to work? Is it going to be good enough? Am I going to give my baby ammonia burn? What can I use for diaper rash?
Really?
Like, I was so stressed out about this.
It almost stopped you.
I had this, like,
from doing
horrible dream about cloth diapering, and then I told my husband, and I'm like, Tom, I had this dream, and I explained it, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. I am so stressed out. And he said to me, if this is stressing you out, then don't do it.
No.
We'll start with disposable diapers.
Yeah.
And we can switch to it later. And that's exactly what we did. And I was fine. So if you're educating yourself, there can be a point where it becomes very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And if that happens, stop. Mm-hmm. Don't obsess over it. Mm-hmm. And if you need, ask experienced moms what their suggestion would be, what they did, find worked or didn't work.
Yes.
And maybe go from there. Because you shouldn't actually be stressed out about it. The education should be a positive thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, and it almost stopped you from doing it completely.
Yeah,
so.
But that's because I'm like an over researcher.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was like too much. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What if this happens? It's so crazy. Just like, all the thoughts that come into moms.
You'll never be fully 100% prepared and educated on everything.
No, on everything, no.
Because I'm having my 5th baby, and there's still things now that I'm kind of learning about. I'm like, oh, I kind of maybe should have done that with my other kids.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Little education is better than none.
Absolutely. Prepare yourself. You'll feel better. Yeah. Our next point is number 6. Don't listen to friends and family. So you can listen to friends and family, but also don't if, say, your family member is like, well, I don't think having home birth is a good idea because you can have this happen and this happen, this happen. Mm-hmm. And actually, I did have family members that did say stuff like that because they were worried, because they were unsure their niece or nephew or grandchild was going to be okay. And I totally get that if you're not educated and you don't know, right? So I'd say, yeah, if that's something you want to do and you feel like they're just not on board with it, you don't necessarily have to listen to everything that they say. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's my advice. And I just went to them and said, listen, this is just how I feel comfortable giving birth. I know that it's going to be hard. I know that it's not going to be a great, it's not going to feel good. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be pushing a watermelon out of my vagina. It's not going to feel lovely. Like, it's going to be intense. And I will just feel better at home in my own area. I'll feel better about this. And so that's just what I did. Just don't feel like you have to listen to everything that they say, because you don't. At the end of the day, it's your birth and they can't tell you what to do.
You still have the ultimate say, yeah.
Absolutely.
And one thing that often happens is you announce your pregnancy. One of the first things women like to do is share their birth stories. Now, this can be a beautiful thing. This can be very encouraging and informative, but it also can be the complete opposite. It can cause a lot of fear. Mm-hmm. And this is like sharing stories. It's a way that people like to connect, especially women. Like, let's face it, we tend to talk a lot more.
Yeah.
And sharing birth stories is a way that we feel like we can connect with somebody.
Absolutely.
But if you are pregnant and you are wanting to have a positive birth experience, you do not want to be listening to all of those awful, scary birth stories of things that went wrong, about your Aunt Margaret who had a baby who had the cord wrapped around the neck 4 times. And
it's true.
Yeah, and then somebody else, your cousin Sue, who had to have an emergency C-section because she gave birth at home. Like, sometimes certain things do happen. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes they can be avoided, other times they can't be avoided.
Yeah.
But you don't need to have all that fear in your mind. So if you've already done our other point of educating yourself, then you know, okay, so here's what I can expect. Here's what would happen. You have a good birth team in place. You have your so your support network and your healthcare provider, anyone else that's going to be in there. Then you don't have anything to worry about. So it's better to keep that fear, negativity away. And I think it's perfectly okay to say to people, you know what? I'd love to hear the story about your birth, but do you mind sharing this with me after I've had my baby? I'm trying to keep positive stories only. You're allowed to say that. You're allowed to ask them to stop.
Yeah. It's funny because I was on my way to BC to meet my niece, my first niece, and I was actually pregnant, and I was driving with my friend Cheryl, and she was telling me her horror story of when she gave birth and how she tore from one end to the other.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, that sounds awful, right? And then yeah, anyways, that obviously was in my head, but then I just started praying, like, God, I don't want to tear, Anyways, I didn't tear it all with any of my babies. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I think she was really jealous that didn't happen to me. Because she's like, what? That doesn't happen to everyone? I'm like, no, it doesn't. But she also said that the care team wasn't always the greatest. And like, there's lots of different things, right? But it's like, I could have taken that story and like let it get into my head and freak me out. And I didn't know I was pregnant at that time. So it's a good thing I didn't. But she was just telling me a horror story that happened to her. And so, I mean, yeah, like she said, you don't have to listen to their story.
Yeah.
Just say, please let me know, but later. And then they'll listen. If they really care about you, they will not say anything.
Yeah. Because most people they're not trying to cause fear. They're just trying to relate and share stories.
Yeah, that's exactly. And they're not trying to be like, oh my goodness, this is what happens. But yeah, don't listen to them because, yeah.
You want positivity.
It's going to stress you out.
Positive birth comes from positivity.
Yeah.
And relaxing and having the good support network and all that.
Yeah.
So it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to this.
Absolutely. And if they're truly care about you, they'll be like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah.
So then our next point, number 7, for the seventh way to have a positive birth experience, visit your preferred place of birth or plan it.
Yeah.
So whether that means you're having birth at home, in a birthing center, at a hospital, at a hotel near a hospital. There's so many different places you can do it. Yeah, envision it.
Where are you gonna have your birth pool?
Think about it.
If you're gonna have a pool, what are you doing? That's a good idea.
And if you are doing a hospital birth, then whether it's from choice or whether it's because high risk pregnancy, doesn't matter. It's a good idea to do the tour. They always offer hospital tours, so you can get familiar with the hospital. You can see, okay, this is what's going to happen.
You know where
the rooms look like. Yeah. And then it's easier to plan for that positive birth experience.
What do they have? Do they have peanut balls? Do they have, birth balls?
Do they have a bathtub or a shower that you're allowed to use?
Usually they won't have a bath a lot of places, but depends
where you are.
Yeah, it depends. But showers is usually where it's at. But yeah, it just gives you an idea, and then you kind of know.
How many people do they allow in the room?
Yes, exactly.
What kind of meals and what timing do they have?
Yeah.
After. What kind of experience is it going to be for your newborn immediately after? Do they do any kind of tests, bathing? Do they wake you up at a certain interval? You can ask all of these questions.
Yeah, all of it.
Try to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. It just helps to make it less scary and stressful.
Yeah.
And then, number 8, learn about types of pain relief. If you're planning on not having epidural, it's not going to be pleasant. Just things that you can do. Petra did hypnobirthing, and I mean, I'd say it worked pretty dang well for her.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't make a peep. So, I mean, there's ways that you can have birth with no drugs and be at, peace, and don't just go into it willy-nilly and be like, I'm just gonna do this, because then you'll end up like me, screaming and swearing at everyone.
You can listen to our first episode ever to hear our birth stories.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they weren't horrible, but yes, I was not as prepared. I wish I was, but I just didn't think about those things. So, yeah.
You weren't preparing for the unexpected at that birth, that's why.
No, I definitely was not. And it ended up being a lot. Like, sometimes you'll think, oh, it's just going to be labor in my lower crotch area, but then it just all is radiating in your back, and you can't control it, and it's contraction after contraction, and you thought you were going to wait to have an epidural till way down the road, and then you realize, oh my gosh, you can't handle this, and you have to right away, and that's totally fine. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but I feel like if you learn about these different things, then you just go in feeling more empowered and ready to face whatever you might have to face, because you don't know.
It's true.
So
we've covered types of pain relief methods in other podcasts. So if you need to, you can search through previous podcasts and look for some of those ideas as well. Yeah. But this could include a variety of things. So obviously, like, if you want the meds, there is the epidural and there is the laughing gas. But for people who don't want those options, or if you're not in a hospital, you can do the hypnobirthing type thing. You can do other types of meditation. You can do counter pressure and massages.
Breathing, deep breathing.
Yes, nice, slow breathing techniques. Water.
Slow, relaxed breaths.
From another episode.
I can't remember which one it was. But you might as well just watch them all, because it would be worth it. I promise.
Oh man,
it was funny.
Water is a huge one.
Oh gosh. And it's funny because a lot of, if you go to the hospital, they just give you ice chips. It's interesting because they still let my client drink water. But then I went to my friend's birth and they only had ice chips.
They were at different hospitals though, right?
Yeah. One was Grey Nuns and the other one was Sturgeon. I'm like, I just thought it was all the same, just in case, because if you had to have a C-section and you aspirated or whatever.
It's actually outdated information anyways.
I know.
So, yeah,
it
depends where you are, who your healthcare providers are.
I didn't know that, though. So I was so confused. I'm like, do you want me to get you some water? And she's like, no, I only can have ice chips. I'm like, what do you mean? I was just at someone's birth and they were drinking water. I'm so confused. So yeah, just look up what they have for those things too, for sure. What you're allowed to do.
Yeah. And if you're learning about all the different variety of types of pain relief, then it's easier to be prepared, because some of them you need to practice beforehand in pregnancy.
Yeah.
Other ones you need to have certain objects available.
Yeah.
So it's good to kind of just be prepared ahead of time and know, okay, I think I might try this one and this one and this one.
Yeah.
And then either writing a birth plan, which we have a whole episode on as well, if you'd like to learn about birth plans, or talking to your support network, whoever's on your birth team, and telling them, okay, I'm thinking of trying this, this, and this. Can you help me or remind me or whatever you need?
Yeah. Writing affirmations down, whatever it looks like for you. There's so many things. And if you can think of anything else, write it in the comments.
Yeah.
Anything you want us to cover for topics, let us know, because we want to deliver whatever information that you guys want and need.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that about covers it about how to have a positive birth. We hope you learned something.
Oh man, if you're watching this right now, my belly looks huge.
So does mine. Mine's a food baby.
Just about 25 weeks. So a few more months, we'll be able to share another birth story.
I know. It's crazy.
That'll be fun.
I can't believe that. I know. Time's flying.
Yeah.
It really is. This baby will be here before you know it.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And anyone watching this who's planning on having a baby, these are all tips that either we've used or we've helped other people use to have a positive birth experience, because you can.
Yeah.
And you should.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it might look a little bit different than what your dream birth was, but it can still be positive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
until next time,
what the mom?